All right, today we're going to get right into it and challenge one of the most basic ideas we have about art. We all think we know what it's made of, but what if the real material isn't something we can see or even touch at all? I mean, seriously, what is it? It sounds like such a simple question, but it gets right to the very heart of what creativity is. When you're standing in a gallery, looking at a painting or sculpture, what are you really looking at? What's the fundamental stuff that makes it art?
Yeah, of course. Our minds immediately jump to the physical materials. We see the oil paint on a canvas, the tool marks in a block of marble, or we feel the vibrations from a speaker. And for centuries, that was pretty much the whole story. The medium was the tangible stuff. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if the true material of art isn't physical at all? What if the answer is way simpler, but at the same time, much, much deeper? What if there's an invisible force connecting every single piece of art ever made? Okay, so here it is, the core idea of this entire explainer. The ultimate medium is risk. It's all about the choice an artist makes when they don't know the exact outcome. Now, I know that's a radical idea, so to really get it, we need to take a quick look at how our definition of a medium has totally changed over time.
So let's jump into section 1, from stone to idea. We're going to do a quick run through the history of the medium, just to see how we got from thinking about art as a physical thing to, well, something way more abstract.
Okay, so in ancient times, it was simple. Art was its material. Think stone, pigment, they were one and the same. Then the Renaissance comes along, and the focus shifts to technique. The medium became this perfect window to show the world. Fast forward to modernism, which was all about purity. What can paint only do? What can sculpture only do? And then conceptual art just blew the doors off the whole thing and said, nope, the real medium isn't a thing at all. It's the idea. And think about that early stuff for a second. For the first artists, working with a piece of wood or a chunk of stone wasn't just about forcing it into a shape. It was a dialogue, you know? The material pushed back. It had its own rules, its own grain. The art was what happened in that conversation between what the artist wanted and what the material would allow.
So then, in the 20th century, you get this super influential critic, Clement Greenberg, pushing this idea of purity. He basically argued that every art form needed to stay in its own lane. Painting should just be about paint and flatness. Sculpture should only be about 3D space. It was all about figuring out what made each one unique.
But here's the beautiful paradox in all that. The moment you build a wall, the moment you draw a clear boundary, you actually make that boundary visible. And what do people want to do when they see a boundary? They want to test it. They want to break it. Modernism's rules, in a way, just set the stage for a total revolution. And that revolution brings us right into section 2, the post-medium condition. This is the moment in art history when all those walls just came tumbling down and the rules of the game changed forever. And you can pretty much trace the earthquake back to this specific year, 1917. One artist, one object, and one absolutely game-changing idea. This slide just nails the whole shift. Before Marcel Duchamp went and put a urinal in an art gallery and called it Fountain, art was all about skill. It was about what an artist made. But after Duchamp, art could be about what an artist declared. The choice, the decision itself, suddenly became the star of the show, way more important than the actual physical object. And this kicked off what the critic Rosalind Cross famously called the post-medium condition. All those old borders between painting and sculpture and performance, they just evaporated. Art wasn't really a collection of objects anymore. It was a network of relationships and ideas. Meaning came from the structure of the thing, not the stuff it was made of. And now, with digital tech, art can be a procedure, something that changes and interacts with you. So, okay, if all the old definitions of a medium are gone, what's left? That brings us to section 3, and we're circling right back to our main idea. The medium is risk. This is the universal foundation that's been hiding underneath everything all along. So let's be really clear about what we mean by risk. This isn't about physical danger, okay? It's about that creative tension, that sweet spot where an artist's control bumps up against the world's total unpredictability. It's the moment of choice when you don't know for sure what's going to happen. And it's in that gap, that little space of risk, that the art really lives. So when an artist uses risk as their medium, they basically become a designer of conditions. They're setting up the rules of the game. They decide which parts of the artwork are fixed, which parts are allowed to change, and which parts are left completely up to chance, or maybe even up to you, the audience.
And the result of that isn't just a static object to look at. It's a whole little self-contained universe, a living system with its own special logic. The art is no longer just the thing itself. It's the whole experience of playing inside that system of possibilities. Which leads us perfectly into our final section, designing new universes. This is where we look at how this idea of risk completely redefines what an artist even does here in the 21st century. See, this framework gives artists what you could call dimensional freedom. Take a podcast, for instance. That's a complete one-dimensional universe built from just time and sound. A book? That creates a 2D field for your imagination to run wild in. And then you have something like a VR game, which can operate in 4 or even more dimensions, layering space, time, and interaction.
But here's the absolute key takeaway. There is no hierarchy. A simple universe isn't less important or less art than a complicated one. What really matters is if it's coherent, if that system of choices and risks feels complete and meaningful, no matter how big or small it is.
This totally redefines the artist's job description. They're not just makers anymore. They're architects of experience. They're designing the laws of physics for their own small universe and building an environment where a new kind of awareness can actually happen.
And what's so amazing about this way of thinking is that it connects everything. The risk a cave painter took making a mark in the dark thousands of years ago is, at its core, the same kind of risk a game designer takes today when they're coding an interactive world. The medium of risk is the invisible thread that ties it all together.
So, in the end, it all comes down to this one powerful idea. The materials, the stuff, they don't matter nearly as much as the choices. The real art isn't found in what we use, but in how we choose. And that leaves us with one final thought. If art is all about designing systems of possibility, and the real raw material is choice itself, then that's a question that isn't just for artists anymore. It's a question for every single one of us. What universe will you design?